I was sipping coffee by the window of my downtown apartment when the notification pinged on my phone. At first, I thought it was another work email or one of those bridal magazine subscriptions I still hadn't bothered to cancel. But when I glanced down, my chest tightened. It was a message from my sister. The same sister who once slipped into my wedding dress, the one I had saved for the most sacred day of my life, like it was just another piece of fabric in her closet. Even now, years later, the memory burns. My parents, God, they thought it was adorable. They called her my little shadow, their bonus bride. I remember standing there in shock, lace digging into my palms as I clutched the veil, while she twirled around in front of them like the star of my show. I set the mug down, the porcelain clinking against glass. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual rhythm, horns, footsteps, the occasional laugh echoing up from the street. But inside, my apartment was silent, almost too silent. That silence had weight, filled with everything I never said to them. Now, here I was, successful career, a view of the skyline, silk blouse slipping across my shoulders, looking every bit the woman they never believed I could be. And yet, one text from her had me spiraling back into that old ache. The message was simple, almost innocent. Can we talk? But I knew better. My family never wanted to talk. They wanted to rewrite history, to blur the lines between what was mine and what they thought should belong to everyone else. And for the first time in years, I felt that storm stirring again. The memory still feels like yesterday. I was 26, freshly engaged, and glowing in a way I didn't even recognize in myself. My fiancé, Daniel, had proposed under the oak trees in Central Park, kneeling with a ring that caught the sun so brilliantly I had to squint through tears. Everything about that time felt like a promise, like the universe finally decided to give me something of my own. The dress was part of that promise. I had saved for it myself, late nights at my marketing job, skipping takeout, choosing subway rides over taxis. When I finally slid into it at the boutique, I felt transformed. The satin hugged me in all the right places. The lace neckline whispered elegance. I remember smoothing my hands over the fabric and thinking, this is me stepping into the woman I'm meant to be. But when I brought it home, everything shifted. I walked into the living room one afternoon, and my heart nearly stopped. There she was, my younger sister, Chloe, standing in my dress. Not just trying it on for fun, but posing in front of our parents like she belonged in it. My mother clapped her hands together, laughing, saying, "She looks like a little bride herself. Imagine the pictures of the two of you, our co-brides." Co-brides. The words sliced through me. I remember gripping the edge of the doorframe, nails digging into the wood. My throat went dry, words caught behind a lump I couldn't swallow down. It was supposed to be my moment, my story, and instead, they were turning it into a spectacle. "Take it off," I whispered, my voice shaking. Chloe just smirked, twirling, the hem brushing the floor. My father chuckled, camera in hand, snapping photos as if it was all a harmless joke. It wasn't harmless to me. It felt like erasure. That night, I sat on my bed, the dress folded carefully back into its garment bag, but it felt tainted now, like it had already been stolen. Tears blurred my vision until I could barely make out the ring on my finger. It was then that my grandmother knocked softly on my door. She didn't say much, just handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a gold locket, delicate and warm from her touch. "This is for you, Emily," she said, her voice firm in a way I rarely heard. "Don't ever let anyone take your name off your own story." Her words rooted in me, even as my world felt shaky. That night, I made myself a quiet promise. If they couldn't see me as the woman I was becoming, then I'd find a way to prove it to myself. And that meant stepping out of their shadow, once and for all. Leaving wasn't glamorous. It wasn't some bold, cinematic moment with a suitcase in one hand and fire in my eyes. It was quieter, lonelier. I moved out of my parents' house with 3 boxes, 1 suitcase, and that locket around my neck. Daniel and I had already been talking about starting fresh, but after what happened with the dress, I knew I couldn't keep orbiting around my family's expectations. The first apartment we rented was tiny, walls so thin I could hear the neighbor's blender every morning. The carpets smelled faintly of bleach, and the windows stuck when you tried to open them. But it was ours. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe without someone hovering over my shoulder, telling me what version of myself I was supposed to be. Still, independence had its price. I juggled my marketing job during the day and freelance copywriting at night. Some nights, I worked until my eyes burned, the blue light of my laptop reflecting off chipped nail polish. I drank more coffee than water, and I learned quickly that success wasn't just about talent, it was about endurance. The turning point came when I landed my first big freelance client, a women-owned skincare startup that wanted a fresh brand voice. The founder, Marissa, was unlike anyone I'd met before, sharp, confident, and unwilling to apologize for it. She read my pitch deck, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "You've got something. Don't undersell yourself." Those words stuck with me. With her mentorship, I started building not just a portfolio, but a business. Every small win mattered. The first invoice paid without delay, the first time someone emailed me because they'd heard about my work. Slowly, the money trickled in, then flowed. Daniel cheered me on, but even he didn't always understand the drive that kept me glued to my desk at 2 a.m., fueled by ramen and determination. Through it all, I kept my success hidden from my family. Phone calls with my parents were polite but shallow. "Work's fine, I'm busy," I'd say, glossing over the fact that I had just signed my 10th client that month. Social media? I kept it vague. A photo of coffee with a caption like "Monday Hustle," never a peek behind the curtain. Because deep down, I knew if they saw the truth, they'd twist it. They'd try to claim it just like they tried to claim my wedding day. By the time 3 years passed, I had built something real. A small team, an office in a renovated loft, clients who trusted me. I had gone from barely affording groceries to choosing furniture that matched the color palette I wanted. And every step of the way, I wore that locket, a reminder that my name, my story, was mine to protect. There were still moments of doubt. Nights when I wondered if I was being too harsh, too distant, by keeping my family at arm's length. But then I'd remember Chloe twirling in my dress, my parents clapping like I was invisible. And I'd remind myself I wasn't running away from them anymore. I was building something they could never take from me. It was a Sunday afternoon when they showed up. No warning, no polite phone call, just the sound of a knock that echoed too loudly against my loft's steel door. Daniel had gone to visit his parents, so it was just me. I hesitated before answering, heart thudding in my chest, because somehow I already knew. And I was right. There they stood, my parents, with Chloe right behind them, her smile hesitant but still polished, like she'd practiced in the mirror. My mother's eyes darted past me into the apartment, scanning, measuring. My father cleared his throat, as if this was just another casual drop-in. "Emily," he said, "we thought it was time." Time for what? To rewrite the story again? To remind me of the girl who once stood invisible in her own wedding dress? Still, I stepped aside. Call it politeness, call it curiosity, I let them in. My loft was flooded with afternoon light, the kind that softened the edges of the exposed brick and glinted off the framed photos lining the shelves. Not just wedding pictures, though those were there, of course, Daniel and I laughing, spinning, dancing like no one else existed, but milestones. Me standing with my first team, arms around each other, grinning. The glossy plaque for my industry's top 40 under 40 list. A canvas print of the brand campaign that had gone viral, the one clients still mentioned. My mother's gaze lingered on that one, her lips parting slightly. My father said nothing, but I caught the way his shoulders stiffened. Chloe, though, her eyes moved everywhere, fast, like she couldn't decide what to be more shocked about. "This is nice," my mother finally said, her voice thinner than I remembered. "It's more than nice," Chloe whispered. Then louder. "You did all this?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to the desk in the corner. Sleek walnut, clean lines. On it sat my laptop, open to a spreadsheet that, if they squinted, would have shown numbers they'd never imagined me touching. My fingers traced the gold chain of my grandmother's locket at my neck as I finally spoke. "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. "I built this. I own this. Every late night, every client, every dollar, it was mine to fight for. The silence was thick. My father tried to clear his throat again, but no sound came out. My mother reached for the edge of a chair, lowering herself slowly as if the weight of the room pressed her down. Chloe blinked hard, her mouth opening and closing, but no words spilling out. They hadn't expected this. They'd braced themselves, maybe, for a tidy apartment and a modest job title. They hadn't braced for the empire I had carved out from their neglect. I let them sit in it for a moment. Let them absorb the walls lined with proof that I was more than the girl they dismissed, more than the bonus bride they'd once joked about. Finally, my father found his voice. We didn't know. Of course you didn't. I cut in, sharper than I intended. You never asked. You only wanted to see me the way it suited you. When I tried to claim something for myself, you gave it away. My eyes flicked to Chloe. You dressed her in my future and told me to smile about it. Chloe's cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. I was just a kid, Emily. I didn't. You were old enough to know what you were doing, I said softly but firmly. The room went still again. And in that stillness, I felt it, the shift. The power sliding, finally, into my hands. I leaned back against the desk, crossing my arms, letting the silence press down until I saw them start to squirm. For years, I'd been the one shrinking in rooms like this, folding myself up so I wouldn't take too much space. Not anymore. You came here for something, I finally said. So go ahead. Say it. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. We thought maybe we could start fresh. As a family. We miss you, Emily. Her voice cracked on my name, as if she had just remembered how it felt on her tongue. I studied her. Once, those words would have cracked me open.
But now?
They just sounded rehearsed. And you, Dad? I asked. He shifted in his chair. We want to be part of your life again. We didn't realize how much you've accomplished. We're proud of you.
Proud.
The word rang hollow, like an afterthought. Then Chloe spoke, her voice small but steady. I don't want us to fight anymore. I know I took things from you, your dress, your moment. I can't change that. But I don't want to lose my sister. I held her gaze. There was something raw there, something less polished than before. Maybe for the first time, she wasn't trying to perform. I let out a slow breath. If you want me in your lives, there are conditions. Their eyes snapped to me. First, I said, there are no more co-brides, no more shadows. I am not a prop in your story. You either see me as myself, or you don't see me at all. My mother flinched but nodded. Second, I continued, my voice firm. You stop dismissing what doesn't fit your perfect picture. Chloe, if you want to be part of my life, you don't get to take pieces of mine and call them yours. You build your own future. No shortcuts through mine. Chloe's eyes welled, but she nodded too, lips trembling. And third, I said, my hand brushing the locket at my throat, this, what I've built, who I've become, this is not up for debate. You don't get to claim it, to parade it around like it was yours all along. If you want to be here, you respect the boundaries I set. Period. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy but undeniable. For the first time, my father didn't argue. He just leaned back, shoulders sagging, and whispered, "Understood." I studied them all. My heart wasn't cold. I felt the pull of old love, of memories that hadn't all been bitter. But compassion didn't mean surrender. Not anymore. I care about you, I said quietly. But I care about me more. If you want to be in my world, you have to grow into it. I won't shrink back down to fit yours. No one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the city outside, faint through the glass. For once, the silence didn't choke me. It crowned me. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. It wasn't overnight, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. My mother started sending messages that didn't feel like obligations. Not long paragraphs stuffed with guilt, but simple check-ins. How are you today? She didn't always get it right. Old habits clung stubbornly, but there was effort. My father surprised me more. He showed up one evening with an old photo album, the kind with peeling corners and fading ink. He set it on my desk and said, I thought maybe you'd like to keep this. It's yours. His voice caught on the last word. For a man who'd spent years claiming ownership of everything, that single act felt like an apology, without the word. And Chloe, she began building her own path. I'd see glimpses on social media. Her designing jewelry, setting up a small online shop. No more imitations, no more stepping into my spotlight. It wasn't about perfection, it was about finally standing in her own shoes. I watched it all unfold with cautious hope. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and healing wasn't linear, but I wasn't carrying the weight anymore. I had set it down the day I drew my conditions. One evening, after a long day at the office, I unclasped the locket and held it in my palm. The gold was warm from my skin, and inside, the tiny photograph of my grandmother smiled back at me. Her voice echoed in memory. Don't ever let anyone take your name off your own story. I realized then that she hadn't just been warning me. She'd been giving me a blueprint for resilience, for independence, for grace. I fastened the locket back around my neck and caught my reflection in the window. The skyline stretched wide and glowing behind me, and for the first time, I didn't see the girl who had once been erased. I saw a woman who had written herself back into existence, line by line, choice by choice. The betrayal of my wedding dress had once felt like the end of my story. But now I knew it had only been the beginning. I smiled, whispering to the empty room, to the city, to myself. They tried to make me share my moment. Instead, I claimed my life.